Welcome, everybody. It is Leah. I am excited to be with you today. Let us jump in and talk about how to actually start making sales from your um, from podcast guesting. Right? There's a lot of people out there who are working hard. They're putting in tons of time, tons of energy into podcast guesting. If you don't know what that term means, it's just a term used when you go on other people's podcasts and you get interviewed and you get to discuss and have conversations on other people's podcasts. Now, it's a great strategy. It can be used very, very effectively to generate more leads, generate traffic, generate sales. However, I know there are a ton of people who are spending a lot of time on this and are just not getting anything really out of it. So I don't want that to be you. I want you to have put the work in, but get the reward, right? Get the benefit, get what it's really all about so that you can grow your business. You can make a bigger change. You can help more people in whatever special way that you do. So, as you jump on, let me know if you are watching live tonight and where you're watching from. If you're on the replay, comment, let me know. And let's dive in to really understand how do you make sales from podcast guesting, okay, being on other people's podcasts. The benefit, if you're new to this term, which I think most of the people here probably are familiar with this strategy, but just for a little bit of ground rules, if you aren't familiar with the strategy, why is it a cool strategy? Well, getting people's attention, building an audience is one of the things that takes the longest and is often the hardest for folks. So, by doing podcast guesting, you're actually getting in front of other people's audiences. You're borrowing other people's audiences. So, it's a great way to get attention of people who aren't used to hearing from you, who don't know who you are yet. It's a great way to get introduced. So let's break down some actual strategy step by step. So get a pen and paper handy. Let's rock and roll, and we will dive on in. Hey, Rachel, good to see you from Northern Virginia. Welcome, welcome. I'm in northern Minnesota today, and so yes, very. It's been a very nice, cool day. Not what I would be used to in Florida at this time where I live. Okay, so if you are doing podcast guesting, if you are out there getting these interviews, but you're really not making sales, one big question that I'm going to start with. So, like, say you are a client of mine, I'm going to treat you like you're a client. I'm going to ask a question. How many interviews are you doing? Because just like all the other strategies, the strategy works when you work it. Okay. So we need to know how often are you doing these? So bare minimum, if you want to consider, if you feel like you're doing podcast guesting to be able to generate leads, and hey, Alicia, good to see you, to do all of this stuff, then the bare minimum is at least one interview a week. If this is your primary source of traffic, your primary strategy for building your business, that better be a lot higher. That should be like one a day. Like it needs to be really high. Okay. So, but minimum, if you're mixing this in with some other content strategies or some other whatever strategies that you're doing, okay, then one interview a week is fair. All right. Now, two this week. Oh, good job. Five last week, Rachel. I like it. I like it. Now, so that's good. So you're doing quantity and you're staying consistent, Rachel. So that's wonderful. Let's get a little further down into this then. Look at whose show you should be on. Because if you're on the wrong shows, it's not going to help you build your business. It's going to be a waste of your time, and you could have been doing other things instead. So, whose show should you be on? The first thing I want you to understand is that it should have an overlapping audience. It doesn't need to be a one for one audience, but it needs to have an overlapping audience. What does that mean? Well, for me, I help coaches, course creators to build, launch, scale their programs, right? And so, can I only be on podcasts that target coaches who are in that process somewhere? No. I could also be on a lot of other podcasts. I could be on podcasts whose audiences are people who are looking to create a course, people who are looking to start into coaching, people who mompreneurs, solopreneurs, Christianpreneurs, people. I am a Christian. I am a mom. I run a business. And so if I have the opportunity to be on those podcasts and that fits for who I am and the backbones and everything. Hey Shane, good to see you. Averaging 2 to 3 a week. Good. That's good. I would still be doing additional strategies, Shane, but that's solid. I like that. But we need to make sure it overlaps. So I'm not going to only look for audiences that are currently coaches and course creators, but I am going to look for people who are into online business, people who are mompreneurs, because that's a really common term for people who are into coaching and different things that we offer, or that speak to there's going to be overlap to our target audience. Mompreneurs, definitely going to be overlap to our target audience. Christian entrepreneurs, there's going to be overlap to our target audience. So I'm not looking for a one for one, but I am looking for like a Venn diagram, right? Where there is overlap that's going to be happening. So make sure that there's some overlap. So for example, on our digital Trailblazer podcast, so we are ranked in the top 5% of global podcasts in marketing. And it's phenomenal. We just launched in November and it's going really well. Now it's an awesome podcast. If now our target audience are online entrepreneurs, mostly coaches, course creators, that sort of thing. Now, let's say you're a fitness coach. You help women over 35 lose weight. But you've got this really cool way that you sell. So you've learned this really cool strategy and you're getting some amazing numbers on the sales and business side. It would actually benefit you greatly to be on that Digital Trailblazer podcast, because even though on that podcast we talk marketing, we're going to dissect all of the sales and marketing strategies that are working really well and all this kind of stuff. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty, which isn't really your brand's jam, right? You're about fitness and losing weight. However, our audience is absolutely overlaps with people who would be interested in what you do, right? How many women who are interested in losing weight are in our audience? A lot. And if they're entrepreneurs, coaches, that sort of thing, they're actually understand the value of spending money to do this, to get help. So highly suggest it. So overlap, right? So it doesn't need to be a one for one, but an overlap. Okay, Rachel says, totally makes sense. Perfect. Good. I'm glad that that makes sense. All right. Now, the next thing we need to look at is when you're evaluating whose show you should be on, is the size of the audience. Now, this will depend on where you are in your journey. Okay. So if you are just getting started, you are not used to speaking on stage, on a podcast stage, you're not used to having these conversations and to really having your messaging down or any of that stuff, then guess what? I am likely going to prefer a smaller audience, because I don't want to get in front of this massive, like, if I was brand new, I wouldn't want to be on like Pat Flynn's podcast because it's massive, right? You have so many people and you don't have your message down yet. You don't know how to speak to your target audience. You don't know how to do this whole interview thing well yet. So I would choose small ones to get started, to get practice, to get good at performing, if you will, in a podcast setting. So if you're just getting started, you're just figuring this out, then work with looking for a smaller audience is great. And those are super duper easy to find. We have a group. You can just type in group if you want the link to join the group, but we just started our own group. There's over 500 members and it's a brand new group to help you network with people who are looking for guests or want to be guests. So both ways, it's totally free. So you can just type in group and we'll give you the link to that. But um, there's all kinds of groups on Facebook like that. There's Podmatch. There's different resources to connect you with people. Now, if you are more experienced, so say myself, okay, I couldn't even count how many interviews I've done over the years. I'm very good. I can just speak, and my time is super valuable because my calendar is filled up of like sales calls, of team managing my team, of coaching my clients, of doing all of these other things. And so, if I'm going to take time out of those other activities and put it towards a podcast interview, I wanna make sure that it's gonna produce and that it has a large enough audience, because I'm much further down the road than someone who's just getting started. I know my messaging, I know how to tell stories, I know how to really connect with people, and and I'm great in that format. So if I'm going to do it, I want a big audience. Okay. So starting small, get practice, get good at what you're doing. And as you do that, look for bigger stages, look for more folks. So you can look at sites like Listen Notes, and that'll tell you if it's a top 5% or a top 1% or whatever type of podcast. Gives you an idea that they actually have an audience and it's not, just them and their mom, right? However, even I have before I when I first started doing podcast and guesting forever ago, there were some podcasts that I think lied on their stats and were not as big as I was told they were. Okay. And I still made sales because even if no one was listening to the podcast, you can still have use those opportunities to network. Use it as a networking opportunity with the host. Whether that host is someone you can help directly. I've booked sales calls from being a guest with the host. I've booked that host to a sales call. I've networked through them to someone else that needs my help. Like there's a lot of opportunities. So just look at it as a great way to build relationship with that person and then to network after the interview to see if there's some way, someone that they know that you could help or anything like that. So there's always that opportunity to start those conversations. Now, when it comes to the actual interview, okay. Well, before I ask this, how many folks who are listening, drop a one if you've ever networked for a referral or anything after an interview. Drop a one. Drop a two if that was like a oh shoot, I should be doing that sort of scenario. Uh, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about it, but it's a huge opportunity, and I really don't want you to miss out on that. Okay. One. Good, Rachel. That's my girl. Good, good. All right. So with the content of Shane, good. That's good to hear. Okay. With the content, one thing that's really frustrating as a host of a podcast is when someone is clearly just trying to sell. They don't understand about giving value. They don't understand this interview shouldn't be a sales pitch. Okay? The goal of the interview is to get exposure to new people and to generate leads. You do not sell on the podcast. You make the goal is to make a connection, to build the know, like, and trust factor enough with members of that audience to get them to take just one step with you. You're not going to propose. You're not going to ask them to buy immediately. That's, going right straight to the marriage proposal before taking them out to coffee. Instead, we just want to take them out to coffee, right? So y- this should be all about your goal. What you're talking, how you're speaking is about building the know, like, and trust factor so that at the end of the interview, when you give a call to action, a CTA, that they're willing to take it. Now, you're not going to pitch something. You're going to give them something for free. You're going to use a freebie, that sort of thing. But remember, you are not selling. You want to connect. You want to give value. So, with your words, how you're answering questions, you definitely want to be authentic. That's a huge thing. I can't tell you how many people have become clients for us, and they said, one of their number one things, like, you're just why, when I asked them why, it was because of authenticity, because they could feel it from the very first video or the first podcast interview or the very first interaction all the way through to then. I was the same person, and I was very much rooting for them and caring about them and really down to earth, right? So whatever that looks like for you, make sure you are authentic throughout. You want to inspire folks. You want to inspire them and be memorable. If they listen to you and it is, people often speak to the pain, like in marketing, we speak to the pain of the target audience. If all you're doing is speaking to the pain, that can just be depressing and people don't want to fix the situation. They don't feel like there is hope. You want to be inspiring. You want to inspire what's possible. You want to use stories to do that. Okay. So stories about your own journey, stories about your clients' journeys. But storytelling is the best way to become memorable. People remember stories. This is how our ancestors stayed alive in the caveman days before we had books and schools and things to tell us what to do and not to do. People told stories. Hey, your mom would say, "Don't mess with the saber-toothed tiger." Well, it was more memorable if you heard the story of how Uncle Jeff messed with the saber-toothed tiger and now he's missing his leg or he died or like because there was a story. We're actually programmed to remember stories. So leverage that. Use that when you're doing podcast interviews, when you're talking with people, tell stories. Okay? Facts tell, stories sell. Old saying. Remember it, right? So tell stories as much as possible. Now, um, one thing that oh man, Uncle Jeff. Yes. So, have you drop drop a 3 if you've mixed in stories into your interviews. If you've used opportunities to tell stories about your clients or even tell your own story in a powerful way that builds that connection. Right? Drop a 3 if you've been on that, or a 4 if you're like, "Oh, shoot, now I should be doing that," 'cause you should. Uh, good, Rachel. You're on point. I love it. So, with your content, you want to tell stories and you wanna give value as well, right? So, tips, insights, anything that sh lets you highlight your expertise, shows that you really know what you're doing, shows that you could potentially really help them. Right. All of that's super valuable. I was literally talking about stories on the podcast today. Yes, that's wonderful, Rachel. That's good. Okay, now here's something that people get wrong more often than they get right. And I do podcast interviews all the time. Okay, this is a huge sticking point. When people ask them, how should people connect with you or what's the next step if they're interested in learning more, right? Most of the time, I get about 5 answers to this, like, "Oh, check me out on Instagram, and then to join my group, and then to head to my podcast, and right? And it's just down the line, all of these things. So they give, like, 5 different call to actions, 5 things that they're supposed to do. Will they do any? No. There is a general rule when it comes to marketing, when it comes to moving people to take an action. If you give them more options, the more options you give them, the less action they're going to take because any amount of confusion or even decision making is going to lead to people not taking action. Okay. So, says Rachel. Yes, this is really big. So instead, maximum of 2, and really it's one place to connect with you. If they want to learn more, where should they head? One answer. Head to my website, digitaltrailblazer.com, right? One answer. If that's your Instagram, if that's your whatever, that's fine. But one answer, where should they connect with you? And then if you're allowed to give a freebie, then one freebie, right? Not, I have these 5 different freebies, anything like that, you give one and you tell them how awesome it is and how it's going to benefit them. So they're actually going to opt in for it. So, a consult, a free call, none of that stuff works well. Like people don't want to jump on a call at that point. That's asking them to like a weekend getaway in the dating scenario, right? They're not ready for the weekend getaway. They want to go to coffee first. They're curious. They want to snoop around. They're not ready for the weekend getaway. So that's why you don't offer calls as the freebie, free consults, anything like that. You offer a PDF download, a free training, something of value that speaks to your target audience and gets the lead generated, which is something I'm going to hark on really bad right now, is that you need your systems. You need at least a lead generation system set up. So a lead magnet, a freebie that you're going to give away that speaks to your target audience and then pushes them to book a call with you or whatever that next step is. and you need, your email list set up. You need funnel capture pages or funnel pages to offer. People can go to the website link and then they put their name and email, potentially phone number in to get the free resource sent to them in email. Now they're on your email list and now you've generated the lead. That's the actual goal of the podcast. The actual goal of the podcast is get in front of new people and to generate leads from those new people. So if you don't have a lead magnet set up, if you don't have a basic funnel for that lead magnet set up, you better pause your efforts and focus first on getting those things in place before you spend more time in front of, doing all of these interviews where nothing is going to come out of that. That's not how this works. Okay? You need to get these basic systems and processes in place first. Okay. So keep it really super simple. One place to connect with you, one freebie, right? And remember that the goal is to generate the lead, to build enough of a connection, enough of that know, like, and trust factor that they're willing to actually click on the show notes and get the freebie, right? Or look up your website or whatever that one thing is. So you need then a process to sell to your leads. If you don't have a systems figured out to sell to your leads that you've generated, you're missing out, right? Then how are you going to make any money? You need to be able to sell. So whether that's calling your leads, maybe that's your email nurture sequence, maybe that's your funnel, gets them into a group or sends them somewhere else, like wherever that is or however that is, you need a process to sell to them. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to be chasing your tail and you're going to be doing a lot of podcast interviews, spending a lot of time that doesn't actually lead you anywhere. Okay. So we don't want that. All right. Yes, 2 max. Good, good, good. Where to connect and then what your freebie is. Where to connect and what your freebie is. That's all you got. That's it. Okay. So keep it super duper simple. So, yes. Okay. If you do these things, then we start building an email list. Then you start filling your sales pipeline. Now, you need a sales pipeline itself on how to actually sell to them, right? Whatever that looks like, whatever that nurture sequence, whatever that sales funnel is to actually sell to them, you do need that, obviously, to actually convert and to sell. But the goal of the podcast isn't to sell. The goal is to get in front of new people that you can feed into your pipeline, right? The new leads that you're generating. So show up, give tons and tons of value, tell stories, make sure there's a good overlap with your target audience and who you want to work with, that it's the right size audience that fits with where you are in your process, that you network with the host after to see if there's any referrals or anything there, and then have a single way to connect with you, a single freebie that plugs them into your sales pipeline so that you can be generating the leads, nurturing, qualifying them, moving them through to a sale. Yay! That's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you do it. So, was this helpful? Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense. Now I can take questions if anyone has any questions on this process or anything like that. I am happy to help. Awesome. Ooh, great to see you. X is required. Okay. Remove. All right. So let's look at, okay, Rachel, good to see you. So we have 2 Rachels on 2 different platforms. Wonderful. Okay. Random question. Good, good. Good, Shane. Okay. So helpful. Perfect. Rachel, Prosperin, throw in your questions if you have it. Other Rachel, throw in your questions. I'll give you guys a few more seconds. I forgot to even, I'm off my game. If you notice my background is different, it's because I'm like on semi vacation. We had vacation last week. This week I'm up in Minnesota in our in the rental home that we own. Enjoying ourselves, but also still working, but clearly not in my jam. Um, so if you found this helpful, but you need help with any of these pieces, no problem. That's what we do, right? That is specifically our expertise, can help you put together a holistic system and process to be able to build and grow and scale your business. Just type in info, we will chat. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to be guessing constantly on what the next step is or what's the best way to go. We are here for you. Just type in info, we'll chat and see how we can help you out. And if you haven't gotten access to our podcast guest to star course, it's all about what I was talking about today. It was all about it, just more details and all kinds of good stuff from Todd. So make sure you type in star in the comments and then we'll follow up. We'll get that over to you. Okay. So, question. I've networked with hosts before for other opportunities, not clients. Any advice on networking for stuff that pays, like clients? So, I'm assuming, so you've networked, Rachel, where it was like looking for other speaking opportunities or how to work together, maybe sort of stuff. Um, I'm guessing that's what you're saying. If not, please clarify. And so now you're looking at like, how do I actually network to get clients? So I'll walk you through what I did when I remember a time I was on a gentleman's podcast and we got because when I'm on a podcast, I'm kind of like coaching in a way during the podcast. Like I'm just giving so much value, right? And so I was talking about launching a course, I believe, and I was walking through how to you need a sales process and a pipeline and all of this kind of stuff. Um, so when at the end he mentioned at the end of the podcast that I think like while we were still recording that he has a course. And so it was great. I gave him some tips or whatever. So I was looking for a connection. Now, for him, I set him as a sales call, right? And so it was because he had a problem that I could solve. So that came out a little bit during the interview, but afterwards, because people aren't going to, a host is not going to talk about their problems in depth while they're recording, right? But afterwards, I was like, okay, cool. So tell me about your course. Like, when did you launch it? What did you like? What have you been doing to promote it? Like all of these like common stuff that I would really do on a discovery call with someone. But I've just demonstrated with him all of this value and how good I am at what I do. And now I'm gonna ask questions to see is he really happy with where he is? Does he feel like he wants to grow faster? Is he running into roadblocks? What's going on? Is he someone that I can help? If he is, I'll offer him the opportunity to jump on a separate call and explore what it's like to get that help. So it was super, super simple and really, really natural because I had the solution that he needed to help out him and his business. I've had podcast hosts offer me things like write an article for this thing or do a summit or meet this other podcaster. All of those other kind of networking opportunities are wonderful. Okay. Let's say, um, so just starting with the basics, um, what you're doing is obviously is working because those sort of connections are wonderful, Rachel. But I would add into that, how can I help you? Like, or is there someone that you know that I can help in some way or that would find this helpful? Right? Asking for essentially those referrals. Okay. And then doing it reciprocating. Who do who should I send your way? Right? Who would be a really good client for you? Or a new or a guest? What would be most helpful for you? So always sort of asking those questions and doing that reciprocating thing back and forth so that it's more natural. And then just obviously be in total integrity and actually make those connections and give those referrals when appropriate. Um yeah. So I ask a lot of questions. I do. Like if they've hinted or if they've talked about something. So let's say, Rachel, I was interviewing, let's say you were interviewing me and I was a health coach about weight loss. Then I would, and you mentioned something about your own struggles about yo yo dieting or something during the interview. And then when the interview got off, I would ask questions about that. I'd be like, yeah, I totally get the yo yo thing. That was me for a lot of years until uh, until I really XYZ. So are you currently like, would you be able to overcome that? Are you really happy with where your weight is and everything now? Or are you still looking to lose some weight? Right. And then I just go into asking the questions that I can answer. So it really makes sense. So I would just naturally do that. And I do that with everybody I talk to. I do that on networking events. I do that in all kinds of scenarios. And it should just kind of become natural, right? You're going to ask questions that can potentially lead to opportunity. That's all. Keep it really simple. Um, awesome. All right. So this has been really fun. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you, Rachel. I've got multiple Rachels watching and commenting, and I appreciate you both and Sean or Shane, sorry. So what we're gonna do, if you're very welcome. If you've got a topic you want covered, let me know. throw it in the comments here and I will cover it next week. Um, and I can even tag you and let you know that it's your thing. So, comment, let me know what topics you want covered. And I will see y'all next Monday. It's 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific time every single Monday. All right. So be here, be square, right? And I'll see you next Monday, 7 Eastern. Have a blessed night. Remember, if you haven't gotten the podcast Guest to Star course, type in star and we will get that over to you as quickly as possible. And if you know that you need help with this stuff, if you know you're sick and tired of struggling and trying to figure this out, just type in info. Let's chat. We'll see how we can help you with it. All right. Have a blessed rest of your day. And I will see you next Monday, 7 Eastern. Bye bye.